I love you. I love you. Yes, I do. There you go. All right, my friends. So we have Carol Michael from Indiana on board with us, who does a gardening YouTube channel, blog, podcast, everything and everything. Thousands, looks like hundreds, if not thousands, of blog posts on your history, Carol. But what the reason I asked Carol to get on board today, we are recording, is because Carol was her website was so fantastic. In fact, I'm just gonna real quick. I hope it'll show me. It says, I want to read what you say. I spent over 3 decades making a living in healthcare IT while making a life in her garden. And that is, man, such a wonderful way to look at that. I made a living over here, but my life was truly over here. And then at one point, Carol, you just quit and you said, I'm going full time in this. So welcome on board to Heritage Wealth Planning. Carol, much obliged for you being here. Thanks for being here. Can you just give us the whole litany of your bio, which you're still working on, as I saw on your website?
That's right. So thanks for having me, Josh. I found out about you from a friend. She listens to everything, and I go to her house and I hear you in the background, and she hooked us up. But anyway, yeah, I call myself a lifetime gardener. I mean, I started when I was 2 years old with my dad gardening, and I always garden. I went off to college and I got a degree in horticulture from Purdue University. And then I found out that the world doesn't like to pay horticulturalists very much money. So I thought this is crazy. I'm not going to live at the poverty level my whole life. And I didn't want to start my own business or anything like that. So I went back and I got a computer technology degree, which I was pretty good at programming computers. I took the first job I was offered out of college for a healthcare system working in IT. And I stayed there 33 years, went from entry-level programmer up to director. And then I retired early at 57 to go back to gardening.
All right. So how long before you realized in horticulture that you were not long to make any kind of income? I mean, were 6 months, like, hey, there's no jobs, or was it a couple of years where you're just digging ditches, or how long?
Oh, well, so I worked a couple of summers in greenhouses for minimum wage. And you know that you work in a greenhouse in the summertime, that is hot, dirty work. and I have all the respect for people that get dirty when they work. I love, of Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah. So I have all the respect for Mike. I actually heard him speak last year back when we could go places. But anyway, I used to get done working at this nursery, and I would have a 25-mile drive home, and I'd stop at a Burger King or Burger Chef or one of those to get a big Coke, lots of ice because it was hot, and I just have the dirt all over. And these people would just like hand that out like I was the scum of the earth because I was a dirty birdie from working outside all day. So
they thought you had coronavirus before they even knew what coronavirus was.
They just knew that I did something that I was doing manual type labor. Yeah. So long story short, when I graduated, there was a fork in the road, says, okay, go to graduate school in horticulture or get a job. So I interviewed, I got job offers for like a dime over minimum wage, and minimum wage back then was like $3 an hour. And I'm doing the calculations. I got to pay for apartment rent. I got to have food, a car. And I'm like, I'm not going to make a living. Nope. So I ditched the whole fork, and I went and got the computer tech degree because I thought, you know what, I can make a Monday through Friday decent living, have money left over to garden. And so I thought, it's one of those deals where gardening is going to be a great avocation, not my vocation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And now, you're from Indiana originally? Mm-hmm. Southern Indiana, is that what you said?
No, I'm from just in the middle of the state, south of Indianapolis.
Okay. And so, like, what got you interested in gardening? Your pops? Is that what you said? Your dad was out there with you?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, my dad, I would go out and garden with him, but I'm one of 5. And I'm the only one that thought this was the greatest thing ever and I should go get a degree in it. The others went off in other directions. So, I think sometimes you're just born with it. And somebody nurtures it along, but I've always loved it. Always loved it.
And in Indiana, what zone are you? We're 7B, right, bordering a 7A here. What zone are you in by chance?
We are 6A bordering 5B where I'm at. You go the other side of Indianapolis. I'm on the south side. You go the other side and they're probably more firmly 5B. So we're right on that line.
Okay.
So you can grow stuff I can't grow.
Yes. Well, that's what the drawback where we are, North Georgia, is right on that line. So I just put I got a peach tree on sale for like $5 from Lowe's, because they always have their end of the year sale, which is, the best time to plant trees. And I got a peach tree. I'm experimenting with it because I think we're just a little north and we've had some first frosts already and everything. Like, yeah, we'll see if it survives.
You know what? I think you're going to be fine with that peach tree. We can actually grow peaches in Indiana.
It's funny, Carol. I had a client up in Michigan. Check this out. And they have a peach orchard. I said, what? He goes,
Yeah.
this certain kind of peach. And I forgot what he said, but I was like, no way. He goes, dude, we have a peach orchard.
So
yeah, go ahead.
What's gonna impact him more than anything is not how cold it gets in the winter, but when it frosts in the spring. Because if you get a frost when the peach trees are in bloom, then the bees don't come out and pollinate it and you'll lose your crop. So it's more about when is that spring frost.
I think he said that when the only peaches you get on are the new sprouts, not the older one. I think that's what he said, unlike an apple tree. I forgot what he said, but it seems like, and I don't know that much about it, but like the branches, that's where fruits, the old branches don't. Maybe the apple tree, I can't remember, but there's something. I was like, wow, I did not know that. You know what I'm talking about by chance?
A little bit, it's like you prune those things up because the little spurs that come out, that's where your blooms will be.
Yes.
It's on new wood.
Yeah, that's what it's new wood, not old wood, on peaches or apples, one or the other, but I forgot. But anyway, all right. So now, are you in the same house that you've been living on, since you've been working as an IT person?
So I'm on my third house.
Okay.
So I built what I call a starter home. I was in an apartment, hated it. The walls are thin and there was a smoker next door and you could smell that in my apartment and I just despise that. So I call it the starter house. They're selling financing as much as they are the house, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
Got in, liked it, tiny little house. And I thought after 4 years, I sold that and I went what I call custom, but it was with a builder who said, well, custom for you, Carol, is the low end of everything because of what you have to spend. So I was there for about 5 years. And then 23 years ago, I moved into this house, which is much nicer. And it's a very nice home. Been here for 23 years, no intention of moving. And of course, I'm retired. This house has been paid for. And I was trying to think last night because I knew you'd ask. And I think I paid this house off about 10 years ago.
Oh,
so I was in my late 40s when I paid off the house.
And how much? What you got? Like a half acre, quarter acre back there? Where's your garden?
It's about a quarter acre with the house on the middle. So it's a standard suburban lot. I got a vegetable garden out back. I got a lot of flower beds and things, and I grow figs here in my garden.
Ah, interesting.
People are surprised that there are figs hardy enough to live in this climate, and there are.
Well, apparently there you go, proof positive. So what's your favorite? And I love talking gardening. Well, I want to talk more specific on other things, but what's your favorite thing to grow, Carol?
There are hundreds of thousands of plants out there.
Yeah.
So to have a favorite, there's a favorite every single day. And so
I know.
I if I choose one, then another plant's going to balk and die on me. So, and I go through phases.
Yeah, me too.
Sometimes it's clematis vines. Then I'm all about the crocuses I plant in the lawn for spring blooms. And
so are you more of a flower or a vegetable person?
I think I'm 50-50.
Okay. Gotcha. So but everyone has a thing they plant each and every year without question. Is there anything that jumps out at you for you in that regard? I'm going to plant this each and every year without question. Anything?
Well, each and every year I'm going to plant a vegetable garden. Doesn't matter. And I'm going to start out in the spring. I'm going to start off on St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to sow a row of peas.
Okay.
And so you would start out probably on Valentine's Day and sow a row of peas. And that's like the beginning of the season. And I'm going to go to the local greenhouse. I got them so that they call me in the fall, in the spring, when the pansies and violas are ready. So they call and say, they're ready, Carol. And it's like, mile and a half up the road. And I'm like, be there in 10 minutes.
So when they said they're ready, like they're babies, you know what I'm saying? Or what?
Yeah, they're in the bedding plants, and they're ready to be planted out in the spring. And you can plant those, and they survive frost and things. So I plant those in early March around here.
You have like a storage of seeds for your vegetable gardens, or you just go like every year you get them for burpee? Because I know you had a burpee hat on. And how do you get your seeds? You keep like a 5-year supply, or you just buy them on burpee every?
I buy them every year. I have a few carryover seeds, and seeds will last several years if stored properly. And so
let me interrupt there. How does stored? Because man, this is something that I'd like to hear your thoughts on. How do you store seeds properly?
I just store them in a drawer in my. Some people will put them in a airtight container in the refrigerator, works as well. There's actually a very large seed storage vault somewhere up near the Arctic Circle. I think it's in Norway, where they tried to get seeds from like everything that grows, every variety of corn and wheat and soybeans. So if there's the big apocalypse or something, the seeds are stored in this Arctic Circle thing that's very cool, and it keeps the seeds dormant, but doesn't kill them.
Okay. So an airtight container in the fridge, and that should keep your seeds for a couple years.
You don't want to get them wet because they'll either sprout or mold on you. Yeah. And but I order. I know a lot of different seed companies. I order from Burpee, and I actually write a blog post and a to-do list for them on their website for my zone. I order from Burpee. I order from a company called Botanical Interest out of Colorado. And I know the president. She's a great gal. She just started this seed company. There's Pine Tree Garden Seeds up in Maine, and I know you're from Maine.
Pine Tree.
They're a great seed company, just good basic seeds. And their website is superseeds.com.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because I did not know that. And if I can support my homeboys in Maine, you said superseeds.com?
Yeah, and it's Pine Tree Garden Seeds is the name of the company.
Cool, good.
And if you want to see a seed catalog that is encyclopedic, the Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds in Missouri, they published the whole seed catalog. And this sucker, you have to buy it on the magazine rack. It's $12.95. But if you're looking for weird vegetable seeds and stuff, Baker Creek's your baby.
And that's your encyclopedia of all that stuff right there.
Oh, yeah. And then there's Johnny's Selected Seeds. They're also, I don't know where they're at. There's just a ton of them.
All right.
I try to order from all of them.
Are you worried? I've heard something about seed shortages and stuff because of stupid coronavirus pandemic reaction and stuff. Are you hearing that? And obviously you're a professional in this, but are you hearing that people are having a hard time with seeds?
Well, the seed companies will tell you there is not a shortage of seeds, but this spring they kind of were caught short, not realizing the number of people new to gardening that would be ordering up seeds. And so they literally had all hands on deck just to fulfill their orders, and they did run out of some.
Okay.
And but I think if you order in January, February timeframe, you'll get what you want.
Okay.
You don't have to worry.
There's not a shortage worldwide of corn seeds and all that stuff. Obviously corn, but
no, I don't see that at all.
I gotcha.
They say the quantity is there. It's just some of the seed companies just said we're going to stop taking orders for 10 days because we can't fulfill everything in a timely manner.
I had a client in Louisiana who has a nursery, and I said, how's business? He goes, dude, it's the best. He's been doing it for 50 years, something like that. He goes, by far and away, the biggest year they've ever had. And I said, shocking. But I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, every greenhouse, every garden center I know that's, independently owned, like the greenhouse around the corner. That's a great story because this gal was 18, went to college for like a semester or two, says, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Came back, and with her parents' blessing, she signed a contract and bought an old greenhouse nursery business. And she's 21 years into it. And I visited, that's where I buy all my stuff. And she's like, in March, they're like, oh my God, we're going to lose our shirt because everything's planted and waiting. And by the beginning of June, she's like, I got to find more plants to sell. I'm selling out of everything. And, you know, normally a greenhouse or garden center, some percentage of the plants end up in the trash. Nobody buys them. They didn't have anything. They couldn't keep anything in stock.
Do you
so it was a good year for them.
So, I mean, would you, I mean, I have a sneaky suspicion, I know what you're going to say here, but you got your typical Lowe's and Walmart and all that stuff. The local nurseries are literally locally owned small business people, essentially, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Locally owned small business now, and they either grow their plants themselves or they source them locally.
Yeah.
And so Lowe's, Walmart, we have Menards here.
Yeah, Menards. Okay.
Menards. They get plants from all over, and sometimes they get plants from further south that are not really appropriate for us. I think they get better at that. But they'll bring tomato plants in at the beginning of April, and it's like, we don't want to even think about planting those here until mid-May.
Yeah.
Because the Lowe's and Menards, their home base is south.
Yeah.
So I always say go local if you can.
Yeah. All right, man. I completely agree. That's and what they have, just, like, you're familiar with CSAs. I forgot what CSA stands for like
Community supported agriculture.
Yeah. I don't know if they have like a CSA for a nursery or something like that, or not even a CSA so much, but like a local nursery that you can kind of say, I guess you just have to look it up, say, hey, what's my local nursery for independent nursery? That's kind of where I'm going with that. Independent nurseries.
You probably know where they're at in your location.
Yeah.
Yeah, so community supported agriculture, that's another deal that's pretty nice. If you find a local vegetable grower.
Yes.
So what you do is you pay a monthly subscription, and usually start paying at the beginning of the year. And then they show up every week with a box of whatever produce they have. Yeah. And so you kind of they might have a crop failure of, say, lettuce, and you end up with a whole bunch of kale that you didn't want, and weird vegetables, but some people like that. It's a big surprise to see what they'll get.
I love it. We bought some local. I haven't actually gone on a CSA yet, but I love the idea of locally people doing that stuff on a regular basis. And if they do run out of X, they're going to refill you with something else. And I think it's a great. The one thing, I mean, and I'm far and away, I'm not one of these guys like, oh my goodness, CO2, we're all going to die. However, I think there's something to be said about locally sourcing your food. If I'm moving oranges from freaking California to Georgia in the middle of the wintertime, that can only be shipped by diesel trucks. I mean, that inherently is, I mean, if you're worried about, carbon, and you're worried about emissions, and you're worried about just trucks on the road, well, don't buy your oranges from freaking California in the middle of the wintertime, if that makes sense. You want to buy it locally, that will keep.
Right. Except you can't buy oranges locally in Indiana. So, if you get them from Florida, at least Florida is closer.
Yeah. But what I'm saying with that is, like, okay, it was the same thing applicable to, kale. I mean, if you're going to buy some kale, at least get it from a local guy as opposed to being shipped from Puerto Rico or something like that. I'm just using that for example. One of my pet peeves is all these people like, I want to, have I don't know, whatever, a kale, but I'm going to get it from a grower in Washington as opposed to someone local. I mean, it's like, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm just using that for an example.
Right. And our local grocery stores are doing a better job of sourcing, even from greenhouses in Michigan or greenhouses in Ohio, that the stuff is grown under glass, so it takes up a lot of energy. But at least they're trying to source stuff locally if they can, or within a 5-state radius.
Especially in today's day and age with the stupid shutdown, everyone's hurting. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everyone needs something, some kind of help a little bit from the local community, and to be able to support your local nursery, your local CSA, or anything that's local. Even a local restaurant is a big deal for sure. Do you do any like hydroponics or any indoor growing by chance, or?
I don't do hydroponics. That takes a pretty extensive setup because that's the water and the water tanks. And so every once in a while I mess around with microgreens.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Right.
Like a real shallow dish, and spread the seed on and usually put it under light. And about 10 days later, when it's got those first true leaves, you can harvest those, throw them on salads and stuff.
They taste so good. Right on. Now you said your other your 5, your other 4, they don't have green thumbs at all, huh?
No, well, no, they do. So 2 of my sisters are very into gardening as well. And my one sister, I mean, it was like therapy for her to be gardening past year. My brother is not really into gardening much. And my other sister, she doesn't really have time. But I was really kind of surprised that, whereas when I figured out where am I going to plant stuff in this vacant lot, this is my house, first thing is like, well, there's where the vegetable garden's going to go. I was kind of surprised when my sister moved to a new house. I says, where are you putting your vegetable garden? And she says, we're not going to have a vegetable garden. I'm like, what? We was raised in the same house. Why don't you have one? So.
Is there something just like, I don't know, divine, going out in the garden and just having, I don't know what it is, man. Like maybe it's just some kind of, I don't know, a muse or something like that, but you just go out there and it is the most cathartic for me thing to be out in the garden with the sun. Just, I love it. There's something just insanely supernatural for me. And I'm sure you get the same.
Well, here's the thing. So you're going to get fresh air, sunshine, vitamin D. And the other thing, they did studies, and there's bacteria in soil that releases hormones in your body that make you happier.
Oh.
So they do studies on this. And so don't take antidepressants, just go put your hand in the dirt a little bit.
They have this thing for military veterans with PTSD, and a lot of them, go out in the farm, go out in the garden and stuff. It's just, it like changes their lives. And that's probably something like you just said with the bacteria in the soil that's, creating a level of antidepressant.
Right. And up at the Chicago Botanic Garden, which I've been to once, it's way up north of Chicago, north side of Chicago. Anyway, they actually, I think, have a program for veterans where they teach them horticulture and get out in the garden and stuff, and it really helps them. And they're big into what they call horticultural therapy. It's like autistic children, people with disabilities, veterans, prisoners, anybody that's like struggling. I tell you, go outside and put your hands in the dirt.
There's a guy on YouTube. I am organic gardener from New Jersey. I don't know if you've seen him. Mark. And he's got a son who's got some autism, some kind of special needs, for lack of a better term. And it's very interesting. He has he uses wood chips to some of the stuff. And I remember I emailed him. I said, hey, just, he doesn't use wood chips all that much. It's an incredible, informative YouTube channel, because he actually gets down to the microfungi and stuff of the soil. It's fantastic. Long story short, I said, well, if you found wood chips aren't as good as, just how he does the soil, how can we still have them? He goes, because my son, who's got autism or something, I just can't remember, he likes to walk barefoot on the wood chips, and it does something in his brain that just it's amazing. Like him just being outside walking barefoot on the wood chips, there's some stimulation there that just, I love it. I just think it's fantastic. And I just think it's amazing that right there has some kind of stimuli that's so positive. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
Yes. Oh yeah. I think anybody would benefit from gardening. I don't care who you are.
No, even if it's just on a back patio with some microgreen. All right, but you've been, all right, so let's talk business. So you were working, and I'm not going to say a crappy old job. I don't know what your job in IT was. I imagine, though, you long for the day, look out the window saying, I got to get out of here so I can get in my garden. I don't imagine you're ever in the garden looking in the car saying, I can't wait to get to work. Maybe you did. But so now you're not 65, all right? You said, I'm quitting my crappy old job, and I'm going to do this. You said you're mid-50s or something like that is what you are right now?
57 was when I retired.
So, can I ask you how, pretty gutsy move, Carol. What was
a couple things. So, I had that degree in horticulture, and I actually started kind of dipping my toe back into writing a blog about gardening. I wrote like a post in 2004 and 2 posts in 2005. And then in 2006, it kind of just took off. And, I have almost 3,000 posts about gardening. But I thought I was in my 40s, and I thought, I don't want to be sitting at this desk forever. My dad died at 59. So that's young. He had
was like car crash?
heart problems.
Really?
And, so I thought, I don't want to be sitting here. And I had a good job. It was a good company. They have a pension. They had a pension. New employees don't get pensions. But I had a pension, obviously fully vested, had a nice boss. We'd sit down, I'd say, hey, I says, I'm pretty sure I'm retiring at 55. And so he's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm maxing out the 403B contribution, 401k, like from my early 40s on. They opened up what they call the salary deferral, the 457B. I maxed that thing out as well. And people are like, well, how'd you do it? And I'm like, I remind them, like, I'm single. I don't have any kids. Didn't have to put anybody into college. So, some
no mortgage because your house was paid off 10 years ago.
Yeah. And then I got rid of the mortgage by paying off the house. So I kept telling him, like, and he's like, oh, you're too young. So I got to 55 and went to lunch. I says, okay, I really want to do it. And he says, nah, you got more in you. And I was a director at the time. So it's like, it's just really reporting to him. Right. I didn't have a bunch of bosses. 56, I said, man, I really want to do it. And so 57 rolls along, and a few months before I turned 57, my birthday's in January. So there was a guy, and he's decided he's going to finally retire. And like 2 weeks after he announced he was going to retire, and everybody's so happy for him, he finds out he has cancer.
Oh.
And so HR canceled the retirement stuff because they're like, you need your insurance, right? He's like, yeah, because he wasn't quite 65. He died the next March.
Oh.
And then it seems like there was something else. And so like, everybody's like, oh my God, if you announce retirement, you're going to die. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. There's no correlation here. None. You're probably going to live longer if you retire. Because IT is stressful. I don't know if people realize how stressful it is. Because, systems have to be running. And when you're in healthcare IT, you can't have downtime. It is stressful. So finally, at 57, I turned 57. I went through all my finances with a financial guy. And it's like, at this point, there's going to be so much money left over.
Right.
And I'm like, so this time I went into my boss and I had the letter that says, I'm retiring. Here's 90 days. I gave him 90 days notice. And he says, oh my God, it's for real. And I probably can't talk you out of it. And I says, you're not talking me out of it. And then, sent the note out to my team and people and, heads popping up out of cubicle land. It's like, oh my God, she's retiring.
Yeah.
So they were happy for me, but jealous as all get out.
I was going to say happy, but internally they're jealous. Like, I guarantee they were. Yeah.
Jealous as all get out. And some of them have since retired.
Yeah.
But I still wonder, it's like, some of them, it's like, you're 66, you're 67. Why are you still working? What are you afraid of?
Yes.
And these people like me were there long enough, they're going to get the pension.
But so, all right. So the first question everyone's going to ask is, well, you're only 57. What do you do for healthcare?
So I did the COBRA for a few months, and then I found Solidarity Health Share, which is a health sharing plan.
Interesting.
And I know MediShare is the one that's advertised on the radio, and people have some issues with it. So Solidarity Health Share, it's a Catholic-based organization, and it's a modest amount per month. I mean, it's really inexpensive, low deductible. And so I've been with them for 4 years now. Now I'll tell you, they've had some growing pains because I think they had just been around a few years when I got on board. So some of the claims have been slow to get paid, but they do pay for wellness. And I would have to get on the phone with the provider and get on the phone with them. And it's like, we got to get people talking here. And they just got so far behind, but hasn't hurt my credit rating. And eventually bills did get paid, even though I got some nasty letters. I just worked through those. Just can't panic. Just got to work through it.
So you pay on the front end and then you wait to reimburse from Solidarity? Is that how it works?
No, they give you a card. Now the card says this is not insurance, but they give you a card and they say, tell the provider, send us the bill.
Okay.
And so the provider, and I've never been turned down to take it, they send the bill just like it was insurance. then Solidarity works with a company to do medical repricing. So they'll come back and negotiate and say, we'd like to pay this.
Right.
And then the hospital or the provider can say no, or yep, or whatever. And then eventually, they come to a settlement, they pay. And then if I'm owed, sometimes I have to pay a little bit. So.
Yeah. All right. So what happened here, where you got the nasty letters that Solidarity and the provider weren't making contact in terms of the actual dollars that had to go from Solidarity to the provider, and you're just
right. Well, the provider wasn't responding to Solidarity's requests.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they're such a small, I guess, they're like a one-off. So in some sense, the provider's like, well, how do we handle this?
That's what I was getting ready to say. It's not as if the provider, heaven forbid, the hospital. I mean, you were in healthcare IT. I mean, man, just some of these guys are just, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, if it's outside the norm, it really kind of bungles up their system, and they're like, it ends up on somebody's desk. But we got it sorted out. I'm going to stick with it. In 4 years or so, I'll be eligible for Medicare.
All right. And so you've actually had to use services under Solidarity, and other than some growing pains and some issues, here you are. You haven't died. You haven't gone bankrupt. You haven't still out in the garden, and you're still able to have quit your job, which is good. Yeah, I get that. But you're still able to do what you want to do without staying awake at night saying, how am I going to pay for this, that, and the other?
Correct. I don't worry, and I'm not worried so much about the market. The market's going to do what the market's going to do, and I'm much control over it.
What, the stock market, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, absolutely. All right. So, but the issue isn't that most people have is how are they going to do healthcare. I'm just telling you right now, and I say, well, if we go back in history, i.e. just like 1 or 2 generations ago, you know what I'm saying? I mean, basically most of this was out of pocket other than catastrophic stuff anyway, which is what Solidarity and MediShare. I had a guy email me here from Georgia who has a different group, but I forgot what his name was. But anyway, same kind of thing. He said, this is the old-fashioned insurance. You pay, I mean, that sounds a little bit different what Solidarity is, but the old-fashioned insurance is you pay for the essential equivalent of an oil change of your car out of pocket, and anything above that, the share kicks in. I said, that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. I mean,
now they pay for wellness. So for women, they'll pay for mammographies. They'll pay for the screening colonoscopies. I believe they'll pay for the flu shot. They pay for a wellness visit with your physician, wellness labs. They pay all that. And then there's an unbelievable $750 deductible for the rest.
Yeah.
And that's not per event. That's for the year.
Was your same primary care physician, did they take Solidarity from what you were doing while you were working, or did you have to find new providers?
No.
Okay.
No, and in fact, Solidarity doesn't care who you go through. Now you have to have healthcare that is within the guidelines of the Catholic Church.
Right.
So they're not going to pay for abortions. They're not going to pay for sterilization procedures. They also aren't going to pay if you are participating in high risk activities.
Yeah.
So if you go out every weekend and drag race for fun and you get beat up, in a wreck, they're not going to pay that.
Well, that's the way it should be. I mean, because
and if you smoke and you smoke and get emphysema, they're not paying that either.
Well, because we are, when I say we, we are the payors of other people's risky engagements.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't want to pay for that crap. I mean, my goodness, if you're going to jump out of an airplane without a parachute, I don't want to cover your issues if you get hurt, because you're going to get hurt.
I would tell anybody, if you have your finances worked out, you'll figure out healthcare. Yeah. And if your work is not your passion and it's just getting you by, but you don't really need it anymore, it's just a crutch, go ahead and retire. Go do something that really is your passion.
Now, why are these other people staying at that job who are even beyond 65? What is it that has them, and you don't have to tell specifically, but what's your sense that says, like you said, why are they still here? Why do you think, are they just scared that they're going to be paupers or something like that? Carol, what do you think?
Yeah, I think somewhat they, and I talked to people that weren't quite 65, and I think some of them are afraid, did I have enough? Yeah. Some of them got their savings backwards and they're saying, well, I put all my extra money into my kids' college fund, and I didn't fund my retirement thing. And I'm thinking, well, you know, I don't advocate people going and getting huge loans for education, but you can get, if it's that important for your kid to go to college, get a loan. If you don't have the money, no one's going to loan you money for retirement.
So I could not agree more. But you knew what your passion was.
Yes. And I think some of these other people don't really know what their passion is. But I've talked to some that have retired, and, you know, they go out and they help the community. Like, I know a guy that retired, and, you know, he's a saver, and he really worked to save all his money. And he did some part-time consulting in IT when he retired, but he goes to the library, and helps people with their taxes in the spring.
Yes, Vida.
And another gal, I mean, she used to work as a data analyst and kind of knows her way around the, you know, reporting and things. She retired, and she helps out at a food bank. So she checks in all the people, keeps their little database, and does that like one morning a week, runs their little database. So you'll find things to do, and people will find you and say, hey, you've got time, can you help?
Yeah, no, 100%. That's why at the American Legion, what they say is, if you show up, they're going to find something for you, because they're always looking for volunteers. And if you got nothing to do and you show up to the American Legion, you'll be drafted like literally in the next 30 seconds. That's for sure. Because all these fraternal organizations are desperate for people to help out. That's just a fact. And it's like a labor of love, kind of like what your gardening thing is. All right, so now you got over 3,000 posts on your blog, which I saw you just change over to WordPress site. Are you making? You don't have to answer specifically. Are you making any income from the blog at all, in terms of like it's paying you? I don't know.
No, because I do not monetize the blog at all. Did not put any ads on there. I make a tiny bit of money because I turn some of the blog posts into books, and I sell books. So I've got.
I saw that. So
I have 3 books that are based on the blog. A book that a brand new essays I wrote about animals in the garden, and then I wrote a children's Christmas story. I've self-published all of them, so there was some money I put into them.
Yeah.
But then, you know, and then I go out and I speak to gardening groups, so garden clubs or master gardeners.
Yeah.
I go out and I've done some speaking for those, and, you know, there's a group paid me to fly down to Florida and speak to them. So
now on your books, so you self-published them. You got 3 or 4. I saw 3 or 4. 5. Okay.
And a 6th one coming.
When's the 6th one coming?
In the spring.
Now, do you do any marketing for them, or just your blog kind of is your marketing, or what?
The blog's kind of the marketing. I used to do a little on social media, but I quit social media midsummer. I said, this is nonsense, and I got out of it all.
Social media being YouTube or what?
No, I considered Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Those things, okay.
And I thought, you know, this is crazy. So I pretty much stopped using. I deleted my Twitter account. I had like 7,000 followers, but having 7,000 followers on Twitter doesn't mean that 7,000 people see every little tweet you put out there, like one person. Right. Same with Facebook. Facebook, you know, they do not show your post unless you send them money to Mark Zuckerberg. They're not showing that post to a bunch of people. That's crazy. And Instagram is owned by Facebook. So I thought this, and my friend and I, we do a weekly podcast. And she still does a little promotion of it on Facebook and Instagram, but we together sort of said, we're getting out of social media. So
what's your podcast called?
It's called The Garden Angelist.
The Garden Angelist.
We are evangelists for gardening is our tagline.
Like the app. I mean, if I go to Apple thing or whatever, I
go to Apple Podcast or Spotify, or I think we're on Spotify.
And you all do that every week, you said? Every
week. And she, I met her through an organization called GardenCom International, which is people who write and speak about gardening. And she lives out in Oklahoma.
Yeah, right.
So she's in the same zone you are. And we record a weekly podcast about gardening called The Garden Angelist.
Carol and Dee continue to discuss gardening trends, including sustainability and houseplants. Martha Stewart's new gardening show on HEB.
Yep, that's us.
Oh, I'm subscribing right now. Cool.
That's it's a half an hour every week, and it's just chatter about gardening.
Well, that's fantastic. All right, so good. So, but when you wouldn't go into this line of work to generate an income in which to supplant your other income because you already had your finances figured out. And go ahead.
I would not rely on this income. In fact, this year, because of the pandemic, I had one speaking engagement in January.
Yeah.
Everything else got canceled. And so
I have a sneaky suspicion, Carol, that your living expenses aren't very high. Is that probably all right, so this is the thing that drives me up the wall. The reason a lot of people don't quit their jobs to do what you're doing is they think their living expenses are going to be extraordinary. And you're just like, well, if we dive right into it, why? Why would it be extraordinary in retirement if it's not extraordinary now? What kind of car do you drive, if you don't mind me asking?
I have a 2015 Chevy Equinox.
Paid for, I presume.
Paid for the minute I drove it off the lot. I also have a 1997 Chevy S10 pickup just for gardening.
Yeah.
And so that sucker's 20 years old. And I only use it to go get gardening stuff. And people's like, can I buy your truck? Because it's only got like 18,000 miles on it. 20-year-old truck. And like, no, can't buy my truck.
Well, it's interesting, Carol. I say to people, I can almost guarantee your success in retirement just by the vehicles you drive. And I always say a woman usually drives a 2013 Toyota Camry paid for. You're pretty close. A man, a 2007 Ford F-150. That's being very prejudicial, stereotypical. I get it. But generally speaking, I found that they have a house paid off. They've lived in the same house for many decades. And they drive a 2013 Toyota Camry and a 2007 Ford F-150, both paid. And lo and behold, there's Carol, almost identical to that. And it's just like, it's so simple. And I don't need to know your finances, but if we look at the book, The Millionaire Next Door, it's the same old story over and over and over again. Pay off your house, pay off your vehicle, live below your means. And lo and behold, you can go in the garden at 57 years old and do a blog and write books. And are you, do you get a lot of people reaching out to you? I guess now everything's kind of shown, but are you finding more and more traffic on your blog because of the pandemic, even if you're not like reaching out to you to do speaking engagements and all that, or what do you find?
It's hard to tell because being a labor of love, I try not to get tied up in the statistics, how many people read it, how many people commented. I really don't care.
Yeah, man.
If I got enjoyment out of it and I've got a few friends that get enjoyment out of it, that's good enough for me. And my books, I tell you, I brag on myself. So the first one, and I got them right here. This one was the first one I wrote. This won the Gold Award from the Garden Com International. So that was the top book of 2018.
Oh, man.
And this guy won a second place award from Women's Press Club of Indiana.
I'm going to try sharing my screen. Hold on just a second. I think we can. I've never done this on an interview, so bear with me just a second.
Oh, look, there's my screen.
There's your screen. I want to show your books. So
yeah, just there.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
All right, cool. And so Potted and Pruned.
That one won an award. Seeded and Sodded won first place from the National Women's National Federation of Press Women. The Critters and Critters is my little pandemic baby. Came out right when the pandemic, so that one's not. I haven't entered it in any contest.
How'd you get the artwork? Do you do this, or how'd you?
I paid for somebody. Well, the artwork on the gardening books, I paid for somebody to do it to make it look professional.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And then the Christmas Cottontail I did with my nephew.
Oh man!
And he's a graphic designer, and so I had this little Christmas story for kids, and I said, "Hey, you got a 4-year-old? Could you illustrate this book?"
Oh. Yeah.
And illustrate it like you're for your 4-year-old daughter. And so it's a very cute little book, and it usually sells pretty well November, December, and I've actually sold probably 25 copies here November, December, so that's decent.
And when did you publish this?
That one came out in 2018.
So the Christmas Cottontail, I love it. That's fantastic. So that's on your today's December 18th. It's probably, I don't know, it might not be in time for Christmas, but next year, my friends, put that on your list for
yeah, I think if you order it from the Big A, you'd probably still get it by Christmas. If you order it from me, you can't. And you can order everything from me and get them signed. You can order them from bookshop.org, and bookshop.org is an alternative to Amazon.
Oh.
And what it is all the proceeds from that go to independent bookstores.
Okay.
And you can actually find your independent bookstore on the bookshop.org and then kind of shop them. You'll get the book shipped by bookshop.org, and they'll take the proceeds from that, go to that independent bookshop. But that's another way to buy books.
.org. Oh, I love it. I love having competitors. But you can just go on your website and buy these from you specifically. Obviously, you guys ship them and all that. But I mean, if someone wants the personal touch, they can do that for your website too.
Sure, they can.
All right, cool. Oh, that's fantastic. Do you have a copy right there, a hard copy of the Christmas Cottontail by chance? You have it sitting right there?
Right here.
Oh, yeah. Oh man, yeah. Okay, that's bigger than I thought. Turn it over. Let's see the back if you don't mind. Oh yeah. Oh. You ever heard of Blueberries for Sal? You ever heard of that book?
No, but I'll have to look at it.
It's a book from Maine. It's Sal is not sure it's a boy or a girl, Frank. It was a little kid, probably 4 or 5, whose mom is canning blueberries in preparation for the winter. And blueberries is, I'm from Maine, and my mom would read that to us when we were a little kid. And the name of the guy who written it had drawn a blank. But anyway, long story short, it looked kind of like that book right there, about the same size and all that. And it's Blueberries for Sal is forever in my head as the anytime I open it up, it just reminds me of a kid and my mom reading it to me. It's like one of those things that's in your memory in a pleasant way, if that makes sense.
Right. And this is a story of a little bunny that Santa Claus finds and takes back to the North Pole, and he teaches the bunny how to sow seeds and bulbs. So now the Christmas Cottontail rides with Santa Christmas Eve, and at the good gardener's houses plants seeds and bulbs for spring flowers, and at the bad gardener's houses just sits there and eats carrots. And so you find out in the spring if you're good or bad, whether you got spring flowers or not.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. Oh, how did you come up with that idea? Just being out in the garden, it hit you.
Get out in the garden. I tell people I come out with my best ideas when I'm out mowing.
Man, divine intervention. It's amazing. It's one of those things. When I'm in the shower, I get my best ideas, and I figure out the reason why. It's not because I'm showering, it's because it's quiet. When you're out in the garden and you don't have anything on, any distractions, that's when I call the Holy Spirit is talking to you and putting these ideas in your head that you're actually able to listen. I did a video this morning, and I said, I hope people get laid off. And I know it sounds bad, but is this from Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art? And he's basically saying we all have something, and the world needs to hear it. And that's obviously you. And the funny thing is, Carol, you are living Stephen Pressfield. And this guy who written The Legend of Bagger Vance and stuff like that. And the issue is, he's saying we all have something. It's not for you to keep it from the world. It's for you to get it out there. And I just, what you said was so important. It's like, I don't care. I mean, obviously we all pay attention to some statistics, but you're like, look, I do this because I enjoy it, and other people get enjoyment out of it. I don't do it to get clicks or likes or anything like that. I do it because it has to get out, and other people will enjoy it or they won't, but it's up to them. But it completely is irrelevant to what I think, oh man, I get this all the time. Like, I can't do this because I don't know what to say. People won't like it. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. And by you doing it for you, the people who will like it will find it at some point. And you might be dead. You might be 100 years from now, but it'll be found, and you'll make an impact on someone's life.
In fact, I hope they find my books 50 years from now in an old bookstore, and I'm long gone. There's one, and I have The War of Art. There's another book out there, which is an old classic for financials, which is Your Money or Your Life. And
who's the author?
Man, it's an old one. I got it in the other room. I thought I should have put it here, but I saw this decades ago on the Oprah show, and the woman said, your money or your life. And it's this concept of, and the example, and I gave to one guy because he had just signed I was working with this guy, and his wife was a lawyer, and he was a financial guy. They had just signed like some jumbo mortgage thing, which was insane. And I said, you ought to read this book.
Yeah.
And the idea is that, like two parents think they both got to work,
Yes.
And then they figure out like the one that makes maybe less. I don't know if it's the man or the woman. They figure out, well, what if that person didn't work and didn't drive to work every day and stop at Starbucks and get a drink and didn't have to have the nice suits and everything. And then they figure out like the cost of them working and figure out, well, they're making 25 cents an hour take home by the time they pay for childcare and everything. That's at your money or your life. So what are you working for?
And that is like
the next fancy house, the next bigger car, you know, and I didn't deny myself. I mean,
right.
I put in these fancy bookcases one year, but my boss always said, when he told his boss that I was retiring, his boss said, you must have paid her too much.
Yeah.
And he told them, he says, no, you know, no kids, no college funds, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because, you know, you have to decide. And I used to tell my coworkers, like, I don't have granite countertops.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to retire early. So look at your granite countertops as you leave on your way to work and say, was it worth working longer to have those stinking granite countertops?
Actually, when George H.W. Bush replaced Reagan in 1988, he was the establishment and Reagan was the outsider, kind of like Trump and whatnot. But anyway, and you know, they were saying, well, we're going to go back to normal, blah, blah, blah. He goes, look, I don't want ideologues. I want people with a mortgage in his administration. You see what I'm saying? I will never, and I was only freaking 18, 20 years old when I heard this. And what he wanted people with a mortgage in his administration because he knew he could control them. Because he said, look, the carrot is here and the stick is you have to pay this mortgage and you're going to do what I tell you to do or else you're going to get hit with a stick. And that is just, I always thought that was so emblem or what's the word I'm looking for? System. I don't know what the word is, but of our society is like, here's a carrot, and you're reaching out for the carrot. Then the carrot just, well, now I need a bigger mortgage. Now I need a jumbo. Well, now I need a bigger car. And it just, man, I just tell you, the one thing I love kind of going to gardening is that getting in the dirt, you know, it just puts you back to the reality of the biggest house in the world doesn't change the ability for you to grow food. You know what I'm saying? The freaking, I don't know, that Mercedes Benz doesn't do anything for your ability to just enjoy the vitamin D from the sun. It's the consumption society we've been in for the last 3 generations probably just seems to have like, I think it's hurting people.
You know what? If you want that big mega house and you want that Mercedes and it makes you happy and you're fine, either, you know, with how it affects your finances, go live your life.
Right.
That's you, but that's not me. And that's not you, obviously.
And I don't think it's that many people, Carol.
No.
I think a lot of people think that's them. And then they're sad. Like, just like the people you talk about are 66, 67. And I'm sure they're probably old enough to have the pension and all that. And you're just like, what? The only thing
are you waiting on?
The granite countertops, Carol. That's
or they're just afraid. They're just afraid. And there's this safety net called, I got a place to go every day, you know, and I'm doing, and so, you know, that's, I don't know. It's up to them.
Like you said, the granite countertops, as you're getting ready to go to work for another day, you got to de-ice the car, sit in traffic, deal with all the crap, you know, was that granite countertop worth it? And, well, I got a dog here. I'll show you to him. He's about ready. He's dead. He's died.
We put the dog to sleep.
Carol, this has been fantastic.
I've enjoyed myself. Thank you.
I've put links to all your stuff here. And again, the podcast is the Garden Angelist. Garden Angelist. Yeah, right there you go. Which I just subscribed to. The blog is Carol J. Or actually, the easier one is your name of your May Dreams Garden. I'll put links to the show notes. MayDreamsGardens.com.
Yeah.
Now, are you just real quick? Are you? I know you said you don't do your YouTube that much, but you know, your plants are wanting to get back on the TV now because I saw you interviewed them.
I did Zoom with them back in the early Zoom days.
Yeah, well, they want to get back some more exposure. So when are you going to bring back the YouTube channel to more?
Well, I did a couple of them. I did a couple yesterday and the day before, and I thought I'm going to do like a 3-minute 3-minute YouTube every day for a while. Just
please do, please, and even if it's just
do it now.
Read your book, man. I'm telling you. Just anything, just to get it out there. Because
I got a couple of them out there from the spring where I was reading chapters. So
yeah. Well, you're a force for good, and we need more forces for good, especially in this insanity that we're dealing with now. But blessing. I'm going to stop record. Hold on just a second. Blessings to you, Carol. Don't hang up yet.
okay. Bye, everybody.
No, oop. I